Thank you everybody for joining our security panel expert with CISO's Insight, which is we don't get a chance to do a lot, and we'll be speaking today on one of the hottest topic around cybersecurity, which is the software supply chain, and how do we make that more secured. My name is Or Yaakov. I'm the VP of Solution Engineering team at JFrog. And basically those are the team of the experts that talk with our customers and prospects and provide consultancy to them around securing their software supply chain. And I'm happy to have with me today some distinguished members. We'll start with Chris Roberts, who is a very veteran in the cybersecurity industry, from roles as a chief security officer and up to being a researcher and also a hacker in mind. I'll let you introduce yourself, Chris. And we have Moran with us, who is the CISO of JFrog, formerly the chief security officer of Playtika, and lots of years of experience around that field. Chris, we'll start with you. What can you tell us about yourself?
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me here. And nice to see everybody from around the world. This is going to be kind of a fun one. Let's see. I've been creeping around this industry for longer than I probably should ever care to admit. There's the gray hair under the colored hair. And or to your point, I mean, I've done everything from, I started as a screwdriver wielding techie, and now I do CISO, virtual CISO, research consulting for all sorts of individuals on the commercial and government side of the world. So this is right in the wheelhouse for all sorts of reasons. So again, thanks for having us on.
Oh, we really appreciate you attending. Moran.
Hi, everyone. So glad to be here as well. I'm in the cyber science, I think, around 24 years, which is quite a long time. Couple of CISO positions, and before that was an expert and architect in companies and advising startups around the area. And definitely I can tell that supply chain is one of the most interesting parts, and it's become extremely hard when it comes to AI, and we'll talk about it. Yeah, looking forward.
Thank you, Moran. So first and foremost, I would like to throw in for the audience the poll. We will engage with you during this time, and you probably have some question you want to feel free to throw into the chat. But we are going to have a first poll, and let's see, what do you think of, the question is, what would you consider to be the most impactful security attack surface? So within the organization you're working on or used to work on, is it the infrastructure? Is it the human person? Is it the software supply chain, or is it the production where the application is running? Give you a minute to answer, and I'll share with you the results, so it's interesting. We always get a mix of opinion, and it's probably also related to personal experience.
Indeed.
So let me share with you the results. They are very, very interesting. And thanks for taking the time to answer. So yeah, let me share the result with you. So
wow,
25%, almost quarter, believe that the infrastructure is the one, because it's probably bringing down the entire assets of an organization. 50% the human capital. I would agree here. On my personal opinion, it's something that if you manage to recruit an insider, it's always very impactful. And then the software supply chain, of course. But interestingly enough, the attacks that we remember are somewhat associated with software supply chain. And I wanted to start with you, Moran. What kind of software supply chain from your attack, from your experience, you needed to handle with, and your overall experience from that?
Yeah, let's talk about the Log4j, the famous one. A nightmare weekend. All of us can remember that from the industry. So I can tell you that, lucky us, we're the DevOps company. So we will write prepared and well prepared for that. We know that sometimes it will happen. And we established a very good culture in JFrog a year before that related to supply chain security. Understand that the resiliency of the software and us to be able to rotate keys to change configuration, to upgrade dependencies was something that super critical for us. So we establish process procedures in place. We run a couple of dry run to make sure that it's working. And when times come with Log4j, we know, all of us, that it's need to be established and do that quickly. There were a couple of things that were super hard to do within that. First of all was we know that the impact and the exploit is out there, and that's not something that you're not usually see so fast. And the exploit was there. We knew what will happen, and we know that eventually, within a minute, all your house windows and doors are actually open. You need to try to understand where they are, close them as fast as you can. Some of them were with a fix. Some of the vendors fixed their application fast. Some didn't, and we had a lot of different threats with all third-party vendors, the production tools, so many things that are actually inherent within our production, and we couldn't change that. We couldn't influence that. We couldn't change their code, and that was something that need to work in parallel with so many different vendors and so many different dependencies. So it was a complex one. Over 100 people were involved, and lucky us, it's remediated and fixed very, very fast. But it's an incident that we wouldn't forget. Yeah,
I can imagine. So Log4j is one to remember, and I assume everyone has their scars on their back from that. So it's good to know you were well prepared and ready. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I think the same as Moran. Definitely some nightmares on the 4J. I think the two of the ones that stick out for me, obviously SolarWinds Orion was one of the big ones as well for a variety of different reasons. The ability to go after a couple of key environments to then spread out to everywhere else. I mean, that was a multiple attack surface. But the other one, I think, which is more interesting, which has a more of a human focus, was the one from CC Cleaner. That was one that millions of people had downloaded. So it wasn't really an attack against an individual one, but it was an attack across multiple surface systems. So CC Cleaner got breached and backdoors and architectures put in there, and it just went across. So you've got attacks against corporations, but you've also got a ton of attacks directly against individuals themselves. So I think, you're seeing different tactics being levied against the entirety of the population. So those two really stood out for me very much so.
Right. Thanks for that. And not by accident, the ones that we remember the most are software supply chain attacks, because the devastation is immense. It's not just impacting our own organization, but also if we are a software manufacturer and we have a malicious code within our development lifecycle, or we have a 0-day, or we even insert a known CVE during the development lifecycle, this impacts the entire chain of our prospect, customers, and their customers. So it's kind of devastating to see that happening. And for the sake of the audience, I'll describe a little bit of the tools that are associated with, that are most common within, protecting the software supply chain. So you probably know the more experienced one, and some of you that are newbie to the business. SAST would be the simple and most straightforward one. That is static code analysis. It's checking first-party code that the developer generates just to see he didn't develop something that can later on will translate to a 0-day during production. Anything comes to mind like buffer overflows or exploited methods up to injections, methodologies, etc., etc. And we have the famous SCA, which is software composition analysis, which basically checks for licensing compliance and known CVEs within third-party code that we export into our code. So therefore, we are bringing third-party code, which normally is 80% of the development code. And there it's a jungle. There are CVEs out there being detected every day, being updated every day, that could eventually translate to a software supply chain attack. Now, the problem with that is that when we look at the organization, they normally go straight forward and protect their perimeter. So things like firewalls and runtime protection are protecting the workloads and detecting those. However, that could be late in the game. So we want to push that forward. We want to engage very quickly that the developer will give the developer tools to identify themselves issues before they reach into the production. And by doing so, it requires from them to interact and become partners to our security games. My question to you, Moran, or let's start with you, Chris, maybe. How do you engage or make sure that the developers are part of the game? Because they are very hard to convince. Normally, they have less experience and less knowledge in security.
Yeah, it's a tough one because, I mean, we've been talking about this for years. DevSecOps or DevOps or SecOps, pick whatever you want to call it. For me, it's all about collaboration. You know, as security practitioners, unfortunately, a lot of the times we've walked into the development teams typically late in the game. You know, developers built something and they're like, hey, I built this, it's amazing and it's cool and I want to put it in production. And we look at it and go, ugh, no. And that just doesn't work. I mean, we've become the department of no. We've been known of that for years because what we haven't done is we haven't gone to the development teams and collaborated with them. We haven't sat there and said, hey, let's put a platform together. Let's build something together where we can help educate you on security. You can help educate us on development. We can both educate the business on what they want, need, and how they should be implementing it and integrating it. And we can all bring our experience together. And when you've built this amazing thing that you want to put in production, it can go ahead because we've worked with you across the platform. So you look at that as one area, and then the ability to do continuous monitoring as well. Because again, it's one of those issues, you know, developers building, they're taking code from all these different places, from GitHub, from repositories, from containers and everything.
Right.
What we're not doing is, or what we haven't been doing is a good job of looking at all those containers, looking at all those stores and going, well, hey, I know you want to use this, but it's not supported. It's not managed anymore. It's depreciated. And therefore you're going to use old stuff. Hey, how about using this? So we haven't given them good alternatives and we hadn't put good collaborative tools in place. So it isn't just coming up and going, well, no, you've got to go fix it. It's like, hey, all of us are responsible for this. How do we do something about it? So we take it from a technology and we look at it from much more of a human aspect.
Got it. Thank you. Moran, what practices are you using within JFrog to collaborate with developer and you know, make them a partner rather than the enemy of security?
Yeah, and I have to agree with Chris. I think CISO, when you enter an organization, first of all, need to try deprecate the blocker, you know, the blocker CISO, as everyone's believing. It's still, although CISOs, new CISOs, really doing a huge revolution, trying to do like the best collaboration we can, we still need to like try and avoid those, you know, those definitions that been here in the past. So it is a challenge. I can tell you that when we are thinking about how to collaborate and how to push security to the developers, first, we are very creative. And part of my application security team were developers in the past. They're not just like start with the hacking. They've been developers. They're experienced that within their own. They know how to get into the developer's mind, developer's heart, think about what is it for him. Because we all want to learn something new. We all want to be very fast with what we're doing the great work. So there are a couple of things that we've done, I think, in the last year that were very successful, and I can give that as suggestions to others that are listening to us. Be creative means like listening to them. One of the activities we did in last summer was the capture the flag CTF activity with 10 challenges. Amazing one. More than 200 people, engineering, joint engineering, support engineering in JFrog, all super technical, and they needed to hack our own systems. So we brought into the CTF dashboard and the application that we created, vulnerabilities, zero, like first vulnerabilities, inject them into the system. vulnerabilities from the past. So they needed to figure out how to fix that, to identify that, and that was like hands-on experience for them. It was very successful one. We got amazing feedbacks, and then we created tailor-made to different department with their own native language. For example, the Java teams, we had like dedicated session and webinar for them with all with hands-on labs. So it's not just let's listen to AppSec how OWASP top 10 is so cool, but actually try to get into our seat, be a hacker for a couple of hours, and then educate yourself. And I think that was a very good one in terms of education. And as for the other activities, I do think that we should go to the IDE and the native inherit. I think we will talk about it in a couple of minutes about how to get into their day-to-day and do something with them, not like at the end, like Chris mentioned. Yeah.
From what we are hearing from our customers, it's also all about developer experience. So no matter what tool you bring, it has to be as frictionless as possible. So latest development that I've noticed within JFrog and also outside is to bring, everybody's talking about the shift left, and now there is no shift left anymore. There is left. Solutions such as curation and the ability for developers to find the right package, the recommended package to use that is less vulnerable, that, they have many contributors to that package. It's not something that was released in the last week. What we call operational risk, and to give that knowledge to the developer in the first place to make sure that, he picks up the right package, it's not malicious, and basically to give him that insight, because he knows that if he will take that without precautions, we will catch him later down the chain, and then his work he will need to revisit. So anything that comes into developer experience today is something that I'm blessed for. Now, before we jump, there were some questions in the chat around AI, and we will cover that later on. So I'll address that definitely. But before that, we are seeing the importance of securing the software supply chain through all kinds of regulations that are being inserted at the moment. So some of them I will mention is the US Gov Executive Order 14028 that is adopting the SSDF, which is the another regulation that mandates secure development and making sure that you're compliant. And it's basically been adopted in September 2023 with anyone who needs or wants to do business with the federal government in the US. So basically, you have to show that you are meeting certain standards to protect your software development. So it's not anymore a question of whether I want to do it or it's important to do it. But today, if you want to do business with others, you have to meet compliance and standards. One of the emerging standards or framework that is now emerging is the SLSA, which is also known as SALSA, which is being pushed by Google, and basically it puts guardrails within the software supply chain, what you need to check, how it should look like, and companies are now being, chasing that. Chris, thoughts about regulations? Are they providing friction? Are they important? Do they disturb you?
All of the above. And I think for a variety of different reasons. Moran, I mean, you're probably in the same boat. I mean, in the challenge we've gotten to these days, and this is a bit of a devil's advocate of view for a second. Once upon a time, we had a set of regulations. The set of regulations said, do the right thing. Well, as humans, do the right thing means different things to different people. So then the regulators went, okay, well, now we're going to have to get harder on you. Now we're going to have to ask you, do you have a firewall? People, I've got one of those. And then they went, well, now, is it out of the shrink wrap and did you turn it on? We've had to become more and more specific. And then healthcare said, well, hang on, we want a separate set of regulations to do this. And then the PCI industry, the car carrying industry said, well, we need this. And then to your point, CMMC and various other ones said, hey, we need this. And so now, unfortunately, you have all these different frameworks and all the different ideas, and some are based on ISO, and some are based off of NIST, and some are based off of European GDPR standards, and a lot of stuff in the Middle East. Yeah, there we go. So SSDF framework standards, there's all these different frameworks and standards. Which one should I follow? is it dependent upon the business? Is it dependent upon my regulatory? Is it dependent upon compliance? And I think this is where it's starting to become more and more of a challenge. Because at the end of the day, as a CISO, we are now being held more accountable. So if you look at the other side of the world that's come out from the regulatory and the authorities, now we are not only having to hold our supply chains accountable and our vendors and our suppliers, but we ourselves are having to be more accountable. So we're having to ask more awkward questions, which means the awareness needs to go up, the roadmaps need to be put in place for everything from the bill of materials through to licensing and all the other things. So the environment itself has gotten more complex. As the CISO, we're spending more and more time, to some degree, fielding those external third-party questions and really not necessarily having the ability to fix the problems themselves. So having something coming in, JFrog obviously being one of those areas and going, hey, how do we actually spend more time collaborating with everybody so that we can figure out how to do the regulatory side more efficiently? Otherwise, we're going to get tripped up.
Understood. Moran, your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, let's go back to Biden's executive order. Obviously, it was the outcome of SolarWinds, supply chain security vector, unlike vulnerability. That was something so strong that hit the government and federal. And when I'm thinking about it, I think that the best part of it is that they actually establish a standard. So it's not longer that's risky, the supply chain, but also what are the evidence that you required in order to make sure that all the risks in your supply chain from the left to the right in place. So I know that regulation are usually, it's hard. Okay, some of them are not up to date. For example, I can tell you that I need to establish like a network firewall pen test as well although that we are like with zero trust for 4 years, but I do need to do those stuff. Sometimes it's just that you just need to go through that. But the positive of new regulations that actually brought from a pain from from the field, like SolarWinds, and the lack of visibility that attack bring in and open our mind to fix it. So those kind of regulation are those that I appreciate, and I truly think that it's like accelerator for CISOs. That's the standard and that's the KPI, and let's push our organization to that. So one of the things that Salsa did amazing, they just opened like a heat map of all the risks of supply chain, from the build to their releases, all the way to the runtime and the edge, the distribution. So you got from code to distribution runtime, all the risks of supply chain. So once something like that will approach you, no matter which risk it will appeal, you will identify that because the evidence will be so clear. So you won't promote diversion from one step to another. So curation in that point can actually block malicious, block vectors like happened with SolarWinds. So that's a very easy to implement, but it's just the beginning. We need to think about all the risks, and Salsa will establish that it will become a standard. One last thing about it, that just it's raised by a lot of customers. Everyone has start looking for that and ask, what can you share with me your SBOM as a part of the purchase process, as a part of new engagement? They want to see like routine of that. So that's really increasing the awareness of the importance of those standards.
So you mentioned the SBOM, and before we tell the audience what it is and what's the important, maybe we should throw in our second poll for that, and see what the audience or our participants are thinking about SBOM.
So or if you don't mind, I'm going to add on to what Moran was saying. The one of the other interesting things that's worthwhile talking about on this one as well, Moran, you were talking about, when we have to declare an incident as well, the ability to collaborate now more effectively with the legal teams, compliance teams, regulatory, and then outside and in-house counsel. I mean, that's one huge area that we've done somewhat, but now we're having to do even more with.
Yeah, it's not surprising that the SEC of NASDAQ also require that.
Yeah.
okay, you did great job. Now let's give me a report, an annual risk management report, and describe all the vulnerabilities that you've been handling. Supply chain is a new category that actually interesting NASDAQ and investors as well, which is like, that's totally something new. Yeah.
Excellent. So we have some results for the SBOM question, and let's look at it. So I'll share with you the results. So we have a strong audience today. 90% of them got it right. So everybody knew what that SBOM is, software bill of material. And for the ones who are less experienced with that, today we have another terminology which is also called XBOM, which is an extended SBOM. And basically an SBOM is like an ingredients. When you pick up something at the grocery store and you look on behind, it shows you all the ingredients. And why it's important, because some of you might be allergic to the food, and some of you don't like the taste or whatever, or you have kids and you don't want them to consume something. SBOM is exactly like that, only for software. It comes with different standards like Cyclone DX and SPDX, and it also contains basically the ingredients of a software. It shows all the components within that software. It's normally a structure of JSON that lists all the components of the software. What are the open source packages that are included? And with certain new extension like VEX, it also includes what kind of CVEs you're releasing with that. And this is becoming something that other companies today are asking from other companies, that when they give them like B2B, business to business, that you provide to another business your software code. This is something that now customers and other companies you're doing business with will ask you to provide. And basically, do you see, maybe Chris, do you see more attention to SBOM from the past? Do you see that even getting stronger?
Oh yeah, I mean, hugely so. I mean, I think you said it perfectly, which is, okay, so personal example. Personal example on this one is last year I got diagnosed with diabetes. So sorry, I'm keep this panel still keeps coming back. It keeps telling it to go away and stop sharing. So I don't know how to get rid of it.
Yeah.
All right. So last year I got nailed with diabetes. You know, up to that point, I'd kind of kept an eye as I walked around the grocery store. I kind of kept an eye on what I was eating. I was pretty good, always trained. Now I'm looking for carbohydrates. I'm looking for sugars. I'm looking for extended sugars. I'm looking to see what will harm me as a human. And it's the same thing in the digital world. We've talked about it for years. You know, we've talked about only download from known sources, only download with a certificate. When you download something, do the checksums. These are all the old things that unfortunately most people have forgotten. We have become a society of click download. The iPhone and the Android have made us that way. So we don't go look at the reputation of the vendor. We don't tend to look at who developed the code, what country developed the code. We're building airplanes. I have to be careful as to where I get my stuff from. So now I have to look at export. I have to look at import controls. I have to look at all these other things as I look to see what's coming into my environment. So for me, I'm aware of the software attacks. Now I have to look at it not just from the software itself, but all of the ingredients and what's good, what's bad, and what's ugly. So it's a huge thing that we're going to have to look at from an individual component, but also from containers, from suppliers themselves, from third parties. I mean, the layers of this cake just keep growing exponentially. So I want that ingredients list.
Got it. So participants here, Chris, and next time that you're working with third-party companies, just start asking them for SBOM. That will increase security awareness, and that will become something that everybody will need to comply with. And I believe when you're talking about companies, it shows on the grown up and maturity of their development, right? If they are automatically giving you an SBOM with their releases, it means something about their methods and their ethics of work. And basically just maybe asking Moran, were you being asked to provide SBOM as part of being a JFrog?
Yeah, totally. I can tell you that our customers are very advanced, super advanced. They're asking for SBOM. They're looking for dependencies the status of the dependencies, vulnerabilities, when you're going to fix them, and SLA. So we just, of course, show the bill of materials, tell us what are your depends on. Like, we want to see all the dependencies. We want to understand where the third party is my data shared with third party. We want to see the vulnerabilities that you're handling. We want to understand how you're managing vulnerability program. What's the SLA that stands behind that? And actually, that a question of trust that we're creating with the customers, not just with customers, with community and our open source provided by JFrog as well. So all of that keep us on the highest standard. So I truly believe that SBOM is just the beginning of what we're going to see. It will start with that, but eventually you will looking for a signature that says trusted. And behind that, there is an SBOM and how you're managing vulnerabilities, how you fix and remediate them. Do you have critical vulnerability detected? How you release software like that? There will be a lot of questions that need to be with evidence. And that's already something that we are seeing from customers. They're looking for evidence around the build, the release, and SBOM, of course. So yeah, we're going to see something totally different within a year or two from now. I believe so. Like happened with SOC 2 and ISO and all standard that really started slowly and then become like a standard. If you don't have SOC 2 or ISO, I'm not going to use that software at all. That's a standard. That's my bottom line, right? So we are going to see that in the software supply chain as well, in my opinion.
Thank you, Moran. There are a lot of interest from the audience around AI and machine learning tools. So we'll cover that very shortly. But before that, not before that, you know what? Let's discuss. It's a hot topic. So machine learning has been around, and we foresee, at least, this is not me saying, this is all the Gartner and stuff saying that in the next 5 years, 90% of businesses will develop with machine learning models. The only problem is that everybody wants to now develop in machine learning models or integrate them, such as models coming from Hugging Face, etc. And basically, it creates something that we all known from the past. You remember the terminology of shadow IT, that DevOps and developers wanted to run faster than what the IT could provide to them in terms of assets.
Of course.
And basically bypassed every rule or every method of security that CISOs applied in place. This is something that's happening today with data scientists that basically go out there and bring their models, learn them, develop them. Some of them can be malicious in a very, very smart way that not necessarily will impact the business, but only provide anomaly in results, won't give you the answers that you're looking for, are not trustworthy. Some of them will be spywares, etc., and basically will eat your knowledge. And what we are seeing is an increasingly demand for integrating machine learning models into the software supply chain and making it some kind of a single source of truth. So this is what we are seeing. And maybe, Chris, your thoughts about how we should handle machine learning models and treat them.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because my background in this comes from two distinct areas. One of them is the adversarial model. You mentioned it. I have worked with a couple of teams where we have been working on behalf of government and other entities to poison the data model itself. And somebody mentioned endpoints. Can we ask the endpoints for a software bill of materials? And this is a very, very telling one because we were asked by the government guys to poison endpoint software so that it would turn on itself. So instead of it finding viruses, it thought its own endpoints were viruses and basically killed the entire network. And we were able to do that because we looked at the software, we looked at the bill of materials when we expanded it and realized that their intelligence, their AI model wasn't taking a wide enough amount of data for a long enough amount of time so we could overwrite its own data sets to a point where it believed us and not itself. And so couple of the biggest challenges within artificial intelligence and even machine learning is people don't know the right questions to ask. So people don't know about the data, the model, the learning, what is structured, unstructured, and all the other things that go with it. And then you get into the generative AI, and that's just the wild, wild west. So for me, it's a lot of it isn't just a lot of it's self-education. We need to understand the right questions to ask.
Right.
Moran, I mean, this is your world as well. We've got to know the right questions to ask people. And again, back to the development, back to DevSecOps, bringing those teams in and saying, hey, I know you want to run with the data scientists. Let me educate you on the questions and the things, and then bring us to the table. So it's a much more of a collaborative approach.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I think it's a good segue to what we're handling these days. So I can tell you that we have a very interesting slogan related to shadow IT. We call that Bye Bye Shadow AI. It's a mission for 2024 for the CISO group, and it comes with better understand who are using it, how we're using that. It's just a SaaS that consume data, and that's a question of data and sensitivity and legal. But it also goes back to the question if we are using that to develop models internally. And companies, usually product companies, which are almost everyone are technology companies today, when they're developing our own models or use third-party models in order to train data, either if it's like outsource or open source data, or our own data, or customers' data in isolated environment, all of those bring up much more risks than we know. And basically, we don't know what we don't know. In my opinion, Log4j will be like easy peasy in compared to supply chain attacks that we're going to see in the next couple of years. One of very interesting research that I've read a couple of days ago was related to how simple attack was it that you asked ChatGPT related to a third-party model, but it doesn't exist. That package doesn't exist. So the attackers actually created that, and then generative AI start learning that. And so if someone else and a user, innocent user, ask for that package, it just bring him the malicious model, and that's within a prompt. So that was so smart and so easy, but it's just the beginnings. It's the end of the iceberg, right? So we do need to think about how to secure the model, do evaluation, third-party scanning, and then also related to trusted data, and what is the source of the data? Is it signed, not being manipulated along the way? Ask for and due diligence related to cybersecurity and bias and toxicity. A lot of those things are integral part of when we're saying, like, is it trusted source? So I think that it starts with just be aware of that. Therefore, it shouldn't be shadow. It comes with transparency with the AI groups and architects. We need, as a security persona, need to be much more involved and understand what is going on, and then have also technology that will support it and will manage that. So I see the models that we're developing or adopting and trained as something like a piece of code, like any other package, like Log4j, like any other open source out there. The model is like that. So we need to consolidate that. We need to consume that in a centralized repo and bring the AI machine learning groups to be and act like other developers, do the same transition. It's a single place, that's a single repository, that's the centrals of what we're doing. And then there is a DevSecOps, there is a supply chain around that, a process in place. So first we have visibility, it's managed, it's being controlled, and then we can also scan that and make sure also for them that you're using the right model and it's not biased, toxicity, and of course malicious. So I think that's the beginning of, but we're going to see that evolving and changing, and a lot of layers like curation, etc., will be coming up. Yeah. But I think that we lost all for a moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I posted a whole list of AI. So while you were talking, I found that I did a LinkedIn post ages ago So I just put for everybody to see, all the audience to see, like a whole long list of all the AI questions. So if nothing else, as people, as we explore all the various AI models, people can start asking these questions and more of all the vendors. So hopefully this helps a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Well, we can carry on. I can ask you the questions. This could be fun too.
Yeah, let's do it. Chris.
You know what, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about let's throw the crystal ball out. So the looking ahead one. Let's talk about, you're in the thick of it. You're running an amazing organization. What emerging technologies, emerging trends, and then look at the challenges and opportunities around the supply chain. I would love your thoughts on this one. So please feel free to have a conversation on this.
Yeah, I'm always talking about the fact that when you're adding new technology to organization, hey, if that's
Hey,
okay,
that was
we did
unexpected
unexpected.
malfunction.
Yeah, it's
No
the
worries.
AI package, the AI malicious package has
So
been
I
attack you.
just thank you for continuing on my behalf. But anyway, I think we
Yeah,
talked a little bit about AI, so I'll try to speed up those 2 minutes. I think what we're looking into to do in JFrog at least is integrating AI in a sense of which people will be able to interact using generative AI with our systems to take things further and faster, which means, for example, imagine a situation where you would like to ask your security software supply chain, in which repository do I have a CVE score 9 that will be exploitable in runtime, which means that today, for example, we can look at CVEs and understand whether they are applicable or not. It's not just about detecting a CVE and knowing if it's core 9 or not. It doesn't really matter if will never be called upon or it will run in runtime. But imagine yourself able to talk to security system like they were humans, right? Show me where that package is, in which repository, whether it's going to be exploitable, and fix it, and maybe suggest to me how to fix it. But I think one of the questions that were in the chat, and I want to go back about it, is one of them, Thomas, was asking if you can share in the chat the article that you saw, this kind of vector of exploit. And second is that about AI, what we believe about AI. Do we see AI replacing our security team anytime soon for those kind of activities, or do we see that as a tool that will help accelerate certain things in adopting security methods, in resolution and remediation? Chris, your opinion about AI and how would that integrate into software supply chain or security as a general?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you hit a good one on the head, which is the ability to ask more informed questions and very, very closely. I mean, so many of us have had to learn grep, extended grep, regular expressions, extended expressions. And it's a nightmare when you start looking at having to nest them all together to get to an answer you want. Being able to work with an intelligence and augmented intelligence system to get to that data, to get to that question, to get that piece of information you need sooner is huge, as long as it's been built properly and correctly and it knows all the data sets. So I think that's one definite area which is absolutely fantastic. I think another one is as we start looking at how do we educate people in the security industry, we've done a lot to gamify things. We've done it for end users, we've done it for awareness training, we've done it for security people. How can we maybe look at the developer community and go, hey, we continue to see, perfect example, if you go out to OWASP, Open Web Application Security, those top 10 really haven't changed a huge amount in the last 10, 15 years at least.
Right.
So how do we gamify? How do we make it easier for people to learn and understand? Maybe inside this organization, it's the top 3, here it's the top 4. So you can use an augmented or an AI solution to go, hey, we're consistently seeing these kinds of problems. Let's actually build something that helps them learn and become more effective. So I think those are 2 pretty decent use cases to look at.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Before we jump around it, one of the things that I have a chance to talk to two distinguished CISOs here. I used to be a security architect for many years, consulting to the top companies in Europe at that time. And one of the biggest challenges, and I believe that challenge still exists, is how do they trust you eventually as a vendor? Or how do we, in your eyes, what does a vendor need to comply with? What are you looking for in a vendor before you choosing it? And one of the always the pickiest things that I kind of at the end realized is that being a CISO is something that you don't want every organization to enter your organization, even if they have top solution in mind, a very innovative one, right? And the second thing is you find yourself at the end of the day with 10 up to 20 security solutions covering your, let's say the main ones, 10 to 20, which sometimes you can get lost. You're not utilizing them fully. And this is kind of the challenges that I've been speaking with CISOs. They told me, look, I have too many tools. I'm not utilizing 100% out of them, maybe 40% here, maybe 50% there. I need to educate my team all the time. Those are kind of the challenges that we've been seeing. So one, too many tools. Second, how do you gain trust with the vendor you're working on, what you're looking for? So what's your opinion about it, Moran? I'll ask you first. How do you select those vendors?
Yeah, well, it's a very good question, especially because my team is tend to be super innovative and start adopt early adopters from when it comes to new technology and new risks. We're always looking for the new things that will empower the team and will accelerate us being able to protect the organization with so many risks out there. So first of all, I think that a focus, and that's something that definitely is a key factor. We're not just looking for new tools, but we're focused about and it's related to the risk management that we're running. It's like continuous and evolving program. And then we are trying to understand which product bring the best value to what we're looking for in terms of impact, collaborate with several organization units in JFrog, not just for supporting the CISO office, but also the DevOps and the engineering and the developer itself. Like if we can cover couple of initiatives that will extend the usage. So I think that's a win-win. We see that with automation tools. We see that within monitoring tools that, you used to do like SIEM only for security, right? Today, it's like we're a partner of DevOps. The observability and security comes together. It's a win-win. So those kind of ideas and thoughts are really help us to select the vendors. So it's about a evaluation, it's about value, and also partnering with diversity teams in JFrog and a couple of organizations. That's the main idea. Yeah,
makes sense. Chris, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, sitting as the CISO, we can't do everything. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. No matter how many tools, no matter how much tech, we can't do everything. So for me, I don't look at it as a vendor. I look for a partner. And I look for a partner that will walk with me. Nothing ever goes right. Nothing ever goes perfectly, let's be honest. So when something happens, what I look for, and we went through this about a year and a half ago, selecting a event log monitoring, an MSSP organization. And we settled on one because things didn't go right to begin with, but they brought the right people to the table. And they did that from the beginning. They didn't gatekeep information. They didn't hold anything back. They worked with us. They collaborated, as Moran said, they worked with the teams inside the organization, but they brought the right people to the table. They brought technical people when we needed them. They brought high level when we needed them. So that's one. The communication is always a key one as well. So, we talk about research. I look at JFrog and I look at the amount of information that you give and build with the community. That's important to me. I don't just want a vendor that's going to go out there and hit the major conferences and spend money there and not care about the community they're part of. For me, it's also about building that community. I'm also a proponent of diversity. I actually won't do business with a vendor if they don't have a diverse leadership team and a diverse board. I just won't, because the only way you lead is by putting money where your mouth is. So if I don't want, if that's the best company, I'm not going to buy from them.
Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's something that within our culture, and even we have something that we call in JFrog a codex that we follow. Diversity and inclusion is one of them.
Yeah.
And it brings to so many opinions, so many things that makes you stronger and better.
Absolutely.
And to name a few on top of what you and Moran said, I normally would look into their depth of research. So it's not just they're building things.
Right.
They are also, as you mentioned, Chris, they're collaborating back to the community. They have their own research team. They are, contributing to the community. They have detections and maybe bug bounties initiatives that they are running or doing themselves. So a deep research team to go along with that, and also making sure that they can provide the resilience and their solution is that robust that they know that if we need to follow 3 nines or 4 nines, they will be able to provide us that infrastructure or that service to comply with the standard that we need to meet. So to add on top of the smart things you've said, both of you, I would add those couple of things. Let's see. We have a couple of more interesting things to talk about, but do you think that eventually we talked about software supply chain, and we know it's not anymore. There are many points of penetration in the software supply chain, right? There is the developer who is becoming the #1 target because it's easy to attack him, and then you can influence the entire software supply chain. So there are many ways.
Those are the biggest attacks that we see in the last 2 years. All the huge companies that invest billions of dollars for cyber defense program being hacked.
Right.
So huge names being hacked because of trying to get to the pain point, the developers, their permissions, tokens. Yeah.
So since we are coming out of the hour, and I really want maybe to leave a couple of minutes for questions for the audience and the participants, do you believe that securing an end-to-end software supply chain from the developer who chooses the right package and up to the runtime and generating observability throughout along the way while meeting compliance and integrating AI tools and protecting MLOps, everything we talked about, do you believe this is achievable?
Moran, would you like to go first on this, or would you like me to throw the rocks at it?
Go ahead.
So I think is it achievable? I would say yes. Is it something that will eliminate probability of a risk occurring? Absolutely not. And I think that's one of those things. And I was thinking about it as we were talking about this. Most of us are old enough that we remember when the internet was 3 layers. It was the web, the application, and the database. And that was it. It was 3 layers.
Yeah.
Now, how many layers? 20, 30, 40, 50. So even if we do our part, even if we do the software, we do the supply chain, there's still all these other elements that we don't necessarily have in our control. Which bit of the cloud is in, how the containers, who's doing the updates, one of them. There's always going to be something. So for me, this is a huge part of a security, basically a security roadmap. This has to be something that we build with the development teams and with leadership and with everybody else to go, hey, it isn't just security for security. We have to build it as part of a roadmap, because it takes those probabilities and go, hey, we have probabilities and we have potential risks because of threat intelligence telling us this. We need to lower the probability and understand those risks way more effectively than we do. I think part of it is the understanding. We don't understand at the moment all of those issues, so we can't address them. And I think this is doing a fantastic job of it. And I'd love to see more and more of this as we do this, because it just gives people more and more awareness. Because at the moment, I don't think we know all the right questions to ask, or we need to tell more people about this.
Got it. Thank you, Chris. Moran, you have a minute to answer this one.
I got a minute, so simple answer. Yes, 100%. And I'm sure that the frameworks that we're going to see in the near future will be like a signature if you get it or not. It's a way to evaluate you and make sure that I'm safe to do business with you when it comes to money, to investment, to your stock. And do business with Federal. It will go all the way into all the companies. So that's how it started usually, and then become like a standard of NIST. So I can make sure that your cloud is protected. Supply chain is gonna have like the same evaluation, in my opinion, and that's 100%. If it's gonna be easy, no. And we have to push developers to do that inherently in their life, day-to-day life. Yeah.
Great stuff. So before I summarize, I want to thank you both for being with us and contributing from your knowledge and time and experience. And definitely the audience will have the chance to interact with you and ask a few more questions after this is over. But I think that we talked a lot about highlighting a very, very important part of the cybersecurity world in this 1 hour, and highlighting how much is important to take care of your software supply chain and how many people you need to interact in order to get to that, and definitely choosing the right vendor and working with the right tools and seeing the future of MLOps and AIOps and everything that we talked about is giving the audience and the participant a good clearance. There is a poll. If you want to hear from us more, if you want our opinion and talk to us, then definitely say yes, and we will be proactive with you. And even if not, feel free to reach. I'm reachable as Moran, as Chris in LinkedIn, and it will be a pleasure to hook with people such as yourself that are interested in cybersecurity and protecting the software supply chain. With that in mind, I want to take the audience above 80% of you said they would like to hear from us. So that gives me the confidence. We were talking about some of the things that touches you as partners, as vendors, as customers. We will be happy to be there. Watch our website. We have a deep and very profound security research team. There are CNA, for anyone who knows what it is. Have the capabilities and right to enlist CVEs with NVD, which shows on the depth. So hundreds, if not thousands, of malicious packages detected. You can watch their research and what they provide to the community. And I really hope it was useful to you and well spent of your time, and looking forward to see you in our next webinars. Thank you very much and have a fantastic day.
Thank you, Alan, Ron, and Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for having us. This was fun. I enjoyed this. This was worth getting up for 4 o'clock in the morning. Let's put it that way. Thoroughly enjoyed.
Thank you.
Dream
very
about
much,
binaries. Good night.
Bye-bye,
Cheers.
everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.